Hi guys, Michael Abayomi here. So I just got done watching the penultimate episode of season 2 of House of the Dragon, titled The Red Sowing. And yep, we're sure in the end game now, folks. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of the episode, I have to give you a spoiler warning as usual. We're going to be discussing in full spoiler details, so in case you haven't seen the episode and you don't want to know what happens beforehand, consider this your final spoiler warning. So the episode opens with Rhaenyra confronting the new dragon rider, who turns out to be Adam Velaryon. And since this was a character that she hasn't met yet, she obviously didn't have all the knowledge that we have. She didn't know that this was one of Lord Corlys's bastard sons. And she was pretty much taken aback by the fact that he immediately swore his allegiance to her without any kind of confrontation, despite the fact that she was approaching the situation with a healthy measure of apprehension. And upon returning to Dragonstone, her elation is dampened by the realization that the dragon rider might not be of highborn status after all. But Messeria tells her to embrace this possibility because it's greatly opened the doors to the number of potential dragon riders they could get. Because in all her dealings in the pleasure houses in King's Landing, she had a lot of knowledge about the various bastard children from the Targaryen bloodline, and so begins the seeds of hatching this new plan for them to try and recruit some of them as potential dragon riders. Over at King's Landing, word of the dragon Sea Smoke finding a new dragon rider reaches Lord Larys through Lord Jasper, but both men resolve to keep the information from Aemond, who was busy meting out some punishment to the new inexperienced Kingsguard that were responsible for escalating the riots. Basically, he banishes them to the wall, which I feel is a just punishment, all things considered. Then we also get to see King Aegon on his path to recovery as he tries to learn how to walk again. And it is clear that Lord Larys has a vested interest in King Aegon getting back to his faculties, because he clearly doesn't have any kind of control over Aemond, who pretty much sees through all his devious means and ways and all that. So this is why he really wants Aegon back, because he already has Aegon in his pockets, more or less. Over at Harrenhal, Daemon meets with Oscar Tully, who is now the new Lord Paramount of the Riverlands after the death of Lord Grover Tully. And while he expected that things would be smoother from then on with the armies he's trying to raise, he learns from the young Liege Lord that he had a lot to answer for all the underhand tactics they had used while trying to win over House Bracken. And while meeting with the lords of the various houses of the Riverlands, Daemon is forced to execute William Blackwood, who was responsible for meting out most of the atrocities. And it was just clear from this scene that Daemon was very much conflicted with the decision he had to make. But this is a character that's already proven times without number that he's willing to do whatever it takes to get what he wants. But at the same time, you could just tell that this was really eating at him, and this is something that would end up haunting him for the rest of his days. Speaking of which, it wouldn't be an episode of season 2 of House of the Dragon without another one of Daemon's visions. So he has another one where he sees a dying King Viserys handing over the crown to him. And this, I feel, is more like a metaphor for everything that Daemon had to do to get to where he was at this point, as King Viserys declares that he had never really wanted it in the first place. And now that Daemon was finally going to get what he wanted, it is clear that it is eating at his conscience. Over at Dragonstone, the tension continues to grow between Jacaerys and Rhaenyra, as Jacaerys was pretty much threatened by the idea of lowborn dragon riders. And even though Rhaenyra tries to console him, he expresses his fear that the new lowborn dragon riders would further delegitimize his claim to the throne. But Rhaenyra doesn't see another way to gain an advantage in the ongoing war. And so she has Messeria using her spies to send messages across the streets of King's Landing as they try and recruit potential dragon riders from the various bastards in the Targaryen bloodline. But it turns out that Jace wasn't the only one with an objection to her plan, as even the dragon keepers themselves didn't want anything to do with it, turning their backs on what they consider to be a very bad idea. But Rhaenyra is unfazed, and she even gives a rousing speech to the gathered lowborns, telling them about the destiny and the fact that it was a life or death situation. And so they are all taken to the dragon pit to meet with the second biggest dragon in the realm, Vermithor, in what I can only describe as an all-you-can-eat buffet, because we pretty much already know what's going to happen here, and it pretty much plays out the way everybody expected, with the dragon going ham on almost everybody and nothing seeming to go according to plan. But in the midst of all the carnage and chaos, 2 dragon riders are eventually claimed, with Hugh being chosen by Vermithor and Ulf pairing up with Silverwing. And even though there'd been a lot of speculation about these 2 being potential dragon riders within the fandom, it was still nice getting to see this play out the way it did, because it paid off all the time we'd gotten to spend with the characters, like the little we'd gotten to know about them, especially Ulf, that was this boastful person, always boasting in the taverns about his Targaryen bloodline. So it was nice to get some substantiation to that claim, as well as just getting another win for Team Black, because they really needed one. Like in the past couple of episodes, it seems that they've been getting nothing but L's, so this was clearly a much needed W. And the episode ends on a high note when a small council meeting is disrupted as Silverwing takes off for a joyride over King's Landing, and Aemon immediately takes chase on Vhagar, but both are forced to turn back when they see the gathered forces of Rhaenyra and her new dragon riders. So looking at the episode as a whole, this was clearly one done primarily to service that final episode, because we could finally see tide of the battle starting to shift, both with Daemon finally making some headway over at Harrenhal, as well as Rhaenyra finally making some progress with her quest for new dragon riders. So it is just obvious that going into that final confrontation for this season, that Team Black has a clear strategic advantage. But it wouldn't be a song of ice and fire if we couldn't expect some curveballs. And judging from what was shown in the preview of the final episode, it looks like their victory might not be as clear-cut as one would be led to imagine. As we see everything more or less coming to a head after all the build-up, after all the speculation, I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped. Like, I just want to see everything finally pay off, and knowing the standard of the show, knowing what these writers have been able to accomplish thus far, I expect nothing but excellence from that last episode. So here's hoping that it delivers on all fronts. Anyway, these are just my thoughts about the penultimate episode of season 2 of House of the Dragon. What did you think about the episode? Were you happy to see some of the plot threads from the storyline with the small folk finally paying off, or was it all too predictable for you? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed watching this discussion, and to subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on if you'd like to see more discussions like this in the future. And until the next one, this is Michael, signing off.